she obstruct them from moving in the leadership in the humanitarian sector. And what are the ingredients if we provide it, and what the support if we put it in place, women will go for it. Sorry, I have taken, I think, more than I should.
Okay, thank you very much. The goat's ready. Thank you very much. Claire, over to you.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I'll focus on the implications that this study has, in my view, on HCs and on my work in particular in fostering leadership in the among humanitarian and resident coordinators. And I'll just make 3 points. The first is that despite the fact that in the presentation in the study the term humanitarian leadership is used, and that there's a reference to how different humanitarian leadership is from other types of leadership, I think actually this study debunks, finally, the myth that there is something called humanitarian leadership. It's just leadership in humanitarian contexts. There is nothing different, I believe, in leadership in there is nothing different in leadership skills and competencies in a humanitarian context or other contexts. These are the same, more or less, competencies. They are just applied in a very different context, as Margie was saying, a context of heightened risk, speed, visibility, etc. So I think we, if we want to grow as a sector in our understanding and in the way we handle leadership, we have to stop feeding the myth of exceptionalism, that the humanitarian endeavor is such a special field, and recognize that we are actually very similar to others, and therefore we can learn from others. And this brings me to a sub-point relating to the role of experience versus competencies. And that's a point that is made in the study makes a rather strong point that experience, of course, is very important for a leader, in a humanitarian setting. I think that's worthy of debate. I can think of several examples of great leaders in humanitarian settings who had little or even no humanitarian experience, and yet were great leaders. So again, that's linked to what is it really different or not? And the implication, the very concrete implication of that for me and for my work with HCs is that when I look for HCs, I should not look only in the humanitarian sector. I should I should cast my net much wider to be able to capture, to attract individuals with the profile that we want, with the values that we want, of course, and throw them in the field, and not restrict the search in the humanitarian arena. That's my first point. My second point concerns, again, picking up on what Margie said about, after all, being a leader is fundamentally about who you are and what you bring to the job, and therefore the whole issue of personal qualities. I would say there's one missing there, which is which we in the IC define as coping. The capacity of withstanding enormous pressure. I would say, in my dealings with leaders, that's the most striking thing about them, the ability to withstand significant pressure. And as an HC once told me, after all, the HC job is about keeping calm and remembering that it's common sense. I think that's very deep. Keep calm and remember it's common sense. So, let's not make an art out of it, but just keeping calm. We know that in those circumstances, keeping calm is already a feat. What is the implication of all of this for my work? Is that if personal qualities are so important, then dealing with leadership is a retail business. It's not wholesale. And yet, organizations, bureaucracies, have a wholesale approach to staffing. And it's very difficult to make them understand that if you want to have a retail approach, it's like the difference between a chain hotel and a boutique hotel. It's actually extremely labor intensive. You need to talk to these individuals, you need to understand their needs, you need to understand where they want to go, where they need to go, where they should go, etc. So the implication again is it's a retail business, and we need to invest the resources, and it's labor intensive, and if we want to get the result we want, we need to invest the resources that are needed in that. My third point concerns the one area that is touched in the study, that is collective leadership. And for me, that's, I mean, looking at the HC role, that's clearly the key one. This is about how do you exercise leadership in non-hierarchical settings, which is clearly the case of the humanitarian sector, and more specifically for the HCs. And I think the cultural change that needs to happen in the humanitarian sector, we can talk about risk, and indeed, you know, things should improve in that direction. But for me, the fundamental change that should happen in the humanitarian sector is around this issue of collective leadership. And where does the responsibility for collective results lie? It's very, and I see that, of course, from an HC perspective. It's very easy for the system to put all the responsibility for all the failings of the system on one individual who happens to sit at the top. But since this is a non-hierarchical system, well, you know, we are all responsible. So, and recognizing that we need to move from a culture of competition by stealth, we are a competitive business, towards a culture of collaboration, which is the only way to achieve the collective results that we claim to be so attached to. For me, that's the major cultural change that needs to happen. And of course, you know, cultural change, how do you make it happen? Well, you create a set of incentives for people to behave, for rational people to behave in collaborative manners. And that's not happening. And that's why we don't have collective leadership, and that's why we resort to the myth and to the superhero HC, and then the HC fails, and then we blame the HC, and then we wonder why our operations are going you know, down the drain. So, you know, that's my last point. And in the ISC, we are pushing a number of initiatives in that respect, making all the agencies, organizations, UN, non-UN, doesn't matter, who take part in the humanitarian business, to make them take the ownership and the onus of delivering collective results, and not leaving that up to an individual. I'll stop here. Thank you.